Hello everyone. Please ignore the pink quote. Um, Basically, I've noticed some of you are struggling a bit with feeling good with meditation. So basically, I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of what it was for me and what I've been doing. Um, Basically, over the last month and a bit, I've been getting myself back to basics. This basics, focusing on breath, focusing on going deeper in the darkness, meditate, that sort of thing. Really paying attention to my guru's instructions of how to meditate, what to meditate on, that sort of a thing. Okay, so one thing, basically, what I do now is, which helps me purge a bit of my individuality and makes me more calmer, is instead of breathing down the spine and taking on board things to my individuality is our consciousness. And when you breathe down the spine, you're taking consciousness into your individuality. If you haven't purged a fair bit of your pain and your suffering, you're just bringing more suffering. So what I do is, instead of breathing down the spine, like taking on board stuff, I breathe up the spine. I'm purging my stuff, and I'm sort of projecting out too. That helps a lot. When I do that, it's easy to get in the crisis state. That's one thing. That's just one technique. Basically, I used to do this years ago, and as a result of last year and a bit, I lost touch of it with a fair bit of just the basics, the techniques of how I used to meditate. And so I was getting really screwed up. And so I've been just applying the basics, and it's really helping me. That's why I've also been posting a fair bit of less rants and stuff on Facebook. I'm not feeling it anymore, I'm feeling good because I'm just applying basic techniques. So basically what that does is when you breathe up the spine, you're taking less from your sensory projection and you're moving more into consciousness. And you're not taking a board from consciousness from awareness and stuff like that. So it's very good. You're just moving outwards. Now basically what I used to do in the crown chakra meditation, now don't, if you meditate, don't go straight into the crown chakra meditation. Please, 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 the first thing you're doing when you meditate every day, all the time, is working your heart chakra. That's the main thing. Beginning of meditation, focus in your heart chakra for at least a month or two. Just for a couple of months, however long it takes to really get that feel good and that weight off your chest. Like literally that weight off your chest and feeling good. That's the first thing that you'll focus on. So basically with the crown chakra meditation, I didn't realize it, but I always used to do breathing up the spine. Now basically when you breathe up the spine, that gets you, starts getting into consciousness and starts experiencing those things. That's the first basic thing you do in yoga. What I was doing breathing down the spine, you do that when you've reached a certain level beyond letting go, if you want to say it. And I won't get into that, don't focus on that. But right now, you guys need to focus more on breathing out the spine. That's the first step. And so I was doing what, like you can see it in my first video, how I was in a slightly different set of awareness. Basically what I was doing was I was breathing down the spine like how I used to do in that awareness. And I'm not in that same awareness anymore, so it doesn't work. So I've got to get back to basics and breathe out the spine. So, anyways, enough of that. But yeah, with the crown chakra meditation and with the mind meditations, what I used to do was, or in my natural breathing really, in my natural breathing I used to breathe out the spine. Whenever I was working on the heart or whatever, of course, I would like a green light or pink light coming into my heart, and I'll breathe it down, that sort of thing. Or I wouldn't even breathe it out, I'd just expand my energy with that energy, and naturally my body would cleanse some energy downwards down to my feet. But I was just focusing on getting bigger and the green light ball and expanding, and so breathing in the energy. But with the crown chakra meditation, I always used to focus on the top of my head first. That's what I used to be focusing on my head. I didn't realize it until a month back. But basically, just that basic technique of focusing on the top of my head. What I'm doing is I'm directing my energy upwards. Even with the breath, I'm directing my energy upwards just by focusing on the top of my head. Now then when my crown would open, through just that focusing up there, then I would breathe in the source. And it's sort of like a inhale, exhale sort of a thing. So inhaling downwards, exhaling upwards, sort of length out. And when you're getting into that state, when you're trying to open the crown first, you're inhaling upwards and exhaling downwards. So first you inhale upwards and you exhale downwards. But you don't focus on much, just sort of focus on the but don't get in the crown chakra meditations or third eye meditations and stuff like that if you haven't worked on the heart chakra. And the heart chakra is the most important chakra to work on. That's where all your connections and your attachments are in some ways. Another basic thing, so I hope that helps. And also, when you get into the crown chakra meditation, you have to get your third eye and your heart in balance, heart and mind in balance. You have to come to some sort of equilibrium. Okay, so moving on. Another thing that I did a couple of months back, which helped with clearing, was that pretty much if I felt overwhelmed or if I started feeling negative, and really, when you're in pain and you're open, you just have more pain. So what I did was, and I don't really do this anymore because you do it too often, you can sort of fry the circuits a bit if you don't know what you're doing. But what I used to do was I used to open and close my crown chakra. So if I was in pain, I would close my crown chakra a bit. And I'm not going to tell you how to do that because I don't really recommend this. But I'll close my crown chakra a fair bit. And then I'd just focus on the heart chakra. Just breathe the heart chakra. And by doing that, all that tension would release in my body. I did this for a while, but I ended up frying my head a little bit because I kept opening and closing quite a few times a day. And it's just, I don't really recommend that to anyone. Unless you're like an energy master and you know what you're really doing, I really don't recommend it. But yeah, that's one technique, and it works very fast. And then because you purge off all your stuff, then you can open up again, and you're feeling good again. So that's one technique, is cleaning out your out temporarily. But that's more like an emergency technique. I'm going to call that an emergency technique because you got to be under strict guidance in order to get to that sort of place. I don't recommend it. No. And me being me, I get a bit extreme with things sometimes. What I do recommend though, which works whether you're open or you're closed constantly, and this is the most simplest one to feeling good. Don't focus on dragging energy in, don't focus on any of that stuff. Just simply breathe and connect with your heart space. That's it. And as you do that, when you close your eyes, and you have that black space there in front of your eyes, or in front of your side, what you want to do is, as you're connecting to the heart, as you're feeling the heart, as you're feeling it, what you want to do is, when you start getting that feeling in the heart, and your breath starts connecting with the heart, and go deeper and deeper, just with the feeling, what you want to start doing is going deeper and deeper into the black space, as you're focusing on your heart chakra, as you're focusing on that feeling, and eventually you go deeper and deeper, and maybe memories will start coming, and attachments and all those things that you're attached to, even people, and those connections will start coming. And basically what you find is that, like, this happened to me the other day when I started, just getting back into the basics of meditation, what happened is that I felt my body actually was going do 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 like that, like basically all these connections being tugged off me, and my body was actually moving to it. It was that extreme. Like, so I made all these connections with all these different people, and and that was in some ways weighing me down quite a bit. And so I purged a bit of those emotional connections, and I was feeling a bit better. And that's one thing that happened. I purged a fair bit of trauma too. And it's weird because the memory of that trauma, I noticed. How do I say this? Me holding on to the memory of that trauma kept that relationship with the person in that state of trauma as well. It's weird how we, just having that emotional connection with someone through trauma, through that traumatic memory, can fuel more trauma. So yeah, I noticed that. It's quite trippy. So yeah, it's very, very interesting, very interesting. So yeah, that's one thing I noticed, and that's what I recommend to everyone, is pretty much tuning into your heart chakra. That's the best one, tuning into your heart chakra. Don't worry about pulling in energy, because really all you're doing is just bringing on more stuff to you. You want to do that when you've purged a fair bit of yourself, but I won't get into that, because to get to those stages, you can't really get it from looking at a video. I recommend going to see a guru, or being under the guidance of someone like a shaman, or just a mystic in general, or a sage, whatever you want to call it. Just someone who's done spiritual work and meditates regularly, and you can see across the satellite. You might not recognize it straight away, but when you get in tune with feeling, you can look at people, and yes, even priests, even Christian priests and stuff like that, at times come from a crisis state, and they're in that state of silence. So that's quite interesting. Maybe meditate with them or something as well. Like, I don't consider myself religious in it. I don't consider myself Christian, Hindu, or a Buddhist or a Muslim or anything. But that crisis state, I find within a lot of parts of mysticism, and spirituality is always found within religion, but religion is never found within spirituality. If you catch my drift, spirituality is like mysticism. It's more the actual work, and it's not going to say manipulation, but it's a working of the energy, and it's been in the workings of the energy. Religion is just sort of like a name, an identity, a sense of, what is it called, closure or something, and you need to sort of purge that, and you need to purge that thing that you identify with in order to get to the spirituality. And it's interesting. I'm pulling around it off. Speaking of a Christian thing, I did a bit of research into Christian mysticism, and the monks actually meditate. It's actually in Christianity, they actually meditate, and they spend time in silence. Silence. Actually meditate. And yet, you get some people in the Christian churches who condemn meditation, and it's found in their own mysticism. What? I went to a church for last Christmas. My parents are Christian, and the whole time I was in church, my eyes are fixated on one priest. He was in what I consider a crisis state. He was in a state of samadhi or silence or meditative trance. And no one else is noticing this. I'm just sitting there, I'm looking around to see if anyone else is in that state or is noticing anything odd about these people, And I'm the only one who's sort of paying attention to that guy. After church, I got up to that priest and I asked him, I was like, how long do you spend in silence and meditation? And he was shocked. He's like, how did you know what I do that? And I could see it on you. I could see your state of being. And it's like, oh, well, we spend an hour before service and many hours after service. This is what we do. We spend many hours in silence, or meditation as you'll call it. So Christian priests actually meditate. The people who preach all that stuff and that sort of meditate. And if you're in tune with energy, some churches, there is a bit of energy manipulation and stuff like that. And it's no coincidence that you feel tired in church. I'm not Christian. I'm not Christian. I don't go to church regularly or anything. But basically, when you're tired, what happens? You yawn. Yes, you yawn. Now, when you yawn, what happens? What happens is if we go to sleep, when you're yawning, your third eye opens. It's weird though, because I feel more drained in church though than I do in any other religious thing. But still, your third eye opens and you still get a little bit of that anointing or whatever. I was open at church. It was sort of like an Easter thing I think we went to, and this priest was going on about pretty much about consciousness. He was literally talking about consciousness, all that sort of stuff, and like stuff that is brought up in mysticism. He was bringing that up to common folk, and he was teaching not Christian, like not just typical Christian stuff, but he was teaching like the philosophy and the workings of the mysticism and how to find that Christed state or a sense of Jesus. He was talking about the actual mysticism of it. He was literally teaching people how to how all this stuff works. I'm sitting there, I'm like, what the fuck? This cunt's on some shit. But these people, because they're so used to just normal Christian stuff, they weren't really buying it. I'm looking around, and like my brother's missus, she looks at me because I usually talk like this, and she's looking at me, and I'm looking at her, and I'm like, like she sort of laughed at me a bit because now I started acting like I'm not trying to be racist or anything, but just laughs like. Now I sort of started preaching like a black woman in church. He was not only preaching the science of consciousness, which is a yogic or a mystic, thing, which is found in all traditions, all cultures, including Christianity. He was literally showing it too, like he was getting people to sit there in silence and meditate. And he was bringing down that Christed energy through his own meditation. Like him and his priesthood would sit there and they just meditate half the time. But no one else noticed this stuff. Well, they're sitting there with their arms like this, closed eyes, and they're sort of like got their eyes rolled back to it. And I could see it, like energy swelling down, and I could feel it. I'm looking around, I got excited. I'm like, shit, these people know what they're fucking doing. And they're bringing science of consciousness through, like, the mainstream church. That made me really proud. I was very happy. And yeah, this church actually openly meditates, and very, very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. And I'll probably drag that on a bit. But yeah, basically with the meditation, the best thing to clear is heart chakra. Just focusing on the heart chakra. Breathing with the heart chakra. And through that breath, tuning into it, and then going deep into that black space. Because think of that black space when you close your eyes as the unknown. You might be scared because it's black as dark. But you go deeper into the unknown, deep into that black space. You're going deeper into consciousness. You're going deeper into your consciousness. Yeah. So first thing, tune into your heart, master your heart chakra. Just, like, I've been getting back to basics, and I'm not regretting it. Yeah. I'm loving it, and I'm meditating less, but I'm doing every little thing the way it should be. I'm not trying to rush this, I'm just doing it, taking my time with it. Yeah, I'm getting back to basics. Much love, much light, and namaste. And yeah, love you guys.